Hello Minecraft, I'm back with episode 5, and I'm playing hardcore Minecraft, which means I have one life, no respawns, and every decision matters. And today is kind of a different episode, because instead of history, English, or philosophy, this is more psychology, and also kind of personal. So I recently learned that not everyone's brain works the same way when it comes to imagination, which sounds obvious, but not in the way I thought, because apparently when people say, close your eyes and imagine something, they can actually see it visually in their mind. And I genuinely thought that was just a figure of speech. I thought everyone was just pretending a little bit, but that's not the case. So this is about something called aphantasia, which is basically the inability to form mental images. So when I close my eyes and I try to picture something like a face or a place or even something as so simple like an apple, there's nothing there. Visually, it's just blank. But I still know what these things are. I understand what an apple looks like, I know they're red or green, but I just can't see it in my head, and for the longest time I thought that was normal. I thought imagining just meant thinking about something and not actually seeing it, and it wasn't until recently that I realized other people are literally visualizing things. They can picture a memory or replay a scene or imagine a place, and it's actually there, which is kind of wild, and it also explains a lot. For example, I can't really remember people's faces or voices in a sensory way. I know what they look like, but I can't recreate it in my head. And I've noticed that I tend to rely more on concepts and understanding instead of visualization, especially in school. If I just try to memorize something or picture it, it doesn't stick. But if I understand how it works and why it is, I can actually remember it, which is probably why I like learning things in a deeper way instead of just surface level memorization. And even with reading, I've realized I prefer longer, more descriptive books, especially classics, because they actually spell out things in detail, whereas a lot of modern writing kind of assumes you'll just fill in the gaps visually, and I just don't do that. So the extra detail helps so much in building the idea instead of expecting me to quote-unquote see it. And what's interesting is that this hasn't really felt like a disadvantage. I didn't even notice it for most of my life because my brain just adapted, but when you start looking into it, there's actually a lot going on. So, from a psychological and neurological perspective, aphantasia isn't about not having imagination, it's about how your brain processes and represents information. So normally when someone imagines something, their brain activates similar areas to when they actually see something, like the visual cortex. So it's almost like a weaker version of real sight, but with aphantasia, that connection doesn't activate the same way. So you still have the knowledge, the memory, and the understanding, but not the visual component. And researchers are still figuring out exactly why, but one idea is that it has to do with how different parts of the brain communicate, especially between memory systems and visual processing areas. So instead of generating an image, your brain might store information in a more abstract or conceptual way, which honestly makes sense because I don't feel like I'm missing information, just the format of it. And another interesting thing is that people with aphantasia can still dream visually, which feels contradictory because during dreams you can see things, so the brain is just capable of generating images. It just doesn't do it on command, which is kind of strange. It's there but not accessible in the same way. And there's also variation within this. Some people have partial visualization, some have none, and some people are on the opposite end, where they have extremely vivid mental imagery, which is sometimes called hyperphantasia. So it's really more of a spectrum than a single experience, and something that connects to this is the idea of inner monologue, because some people also have a constant internal voice, they're narrating their thoughts and others don't. And I fall into that category too, which again, I thought was normal. I don't have a running voice in my head, my thoughts are more conceptual or just understood without being spoken internally, and finding out that other people hear their thoughts was kind of the same realization as visualization. Wait, that's real? So, when you combine both no mental imagery and no inner monologue, it means your brain is processing things in a very different way, but not necessarily a worse way, just different. And it actually explains why I approach things the way I do, needing to understand systems and connections instead of just memorizing because I can't rely on mental pictures or replaying information. So I build meaning instead, and honestly, that can be really helpful, especially in subjects where understanding matters more than recall, like history or science, because it forces you to think about why things happen, not just what happened. And even in something like Minecraft, I'm not visualizing a plan in my head, I'm just making decisions as I go based on logic. And what I know, which is kind of similar, and I think is one of the most interesting parts of this, is realizing just how different people's internal experiences are, because from the outside, everyone seems the same. But internally, people can be experiencing the world in completely different ways. Some people see images, some hear thoughts, some do both, some do neither. You wouldn't know unless you talked about it, which most people don't. So yeah, aphantasia isn't just about lacking imagination, it's about having a different type of imagination, one that's less visual and more conceptual, and once you realize that, it kind of reframes everything, because you stop thinking of it as something missing, and more as just a different system. And honestly, I think that's kind of interesting and important. So, as this day finishes up, we'll see how much longer I make it. Thanks for watching. Peace, blessings, and I'll see you next time.